This improved version of Toyota's 4th generation Yaris Super Mini gets a digitalised interior and stronger safety standards. As before though, its biggest draw is its frugal, segment-leading 1.5 litre self-charging hybrid engine, which is now also available in an uprated 129 brake horsepower form. What was already a class act has just become genuinely hard to overlook.
The Yaris has always been a Super Mini that works well in the real world, and this 4th generation car is no exception. It's long lacked a bit of flair though, but with this revised version of that design, things look as if they could be a bit different. Time to find out just how different. The Yaris has been around since 1999 when the original XP10 series design was launched, gaining the Car of the Year title in the year 2000. In its first 3 generations, more than 9 million Yaris models were sold. The Mark II XP90 series car introduced in 2005, and the 3rd generation XP130 series model launched in 2011, then updated into XP150 series guise in 2014 before being further improved in 2017. The Yaris name taken from the legendary 𝗙cie𝗹𝗹liche or Graces, the 3 sisters that sprung from an illicit relationship between the gods Eurydice and Zeus, isn't the only one this little Toyota is sold under. In different markets is also known as the Platz, the Vitz, the Belter, the Echo and the Vios. In some countries it's called a Daihatsu Charade, and in the US they know it as either a Mazda 2 or a Scion. Nameplates aside though, what this Yaris has primarily been known for over the last decade is its lead in the democratisation of electrification in small cars. Put simply, think of a small hybrid hatch and you tend to think of the Yaris. Which is why Toyota decided that the original version of this Mark IV XP210 series model, first launched in the spring of 2020, should be hybrid only. Self-charging full hybrid, that is. Toyota doesn't believe in compromise mild hybrid powertrains like the ones that brands like Hyundai use in their Super Minis. And full-on plug-in hybrid tech would make a car of this class too expensive. Mind you, the full hybrid tech employed here makes this Yaris pretty pricey anyway, so it's unlikely to figure in your deliberations if you're looking at the budget end of the market. But should it feature in your deliberations at all? After all, the small hatch sector is stuffed with great alternatives, and the self-charging full hybrid Super Mini concept is no longer unique to Toyota. Honda's Jazz, Renault's Clio, Vauxhall's Corsa, Peugeot's 208 and the MG3 can all now also offer the same kind of powertrain. Toyota, though, has vastly more experience in engine electrification than rivals like those. The company's been making hybrids since 1997, and this Mark IV Yaris uses a 4th generation petrol-electric system bolted to a sophisticated Toyota new generation architecture, GAB chassis, borrowed from the Corolla. Platform and powertrain engineering shared with the near-identical Mazda 2 hybrid. That Mazda shares this improved Toyota's more digitalised cabin and safety upgrades, but it doesn't benefit from perhaps the key Yaris change, the addition of a second hybrid engine option, this one updating the standard unit's 114 brake horsepower output to 129. It all sounds quite promising, doesn't it? It might all boil down to a package that offers the market's most sensible, maybe even the most satisfying, real-world Super Mini choice. But does it? Well, you'll need the industry's most comprehensive review, the car and driving road test, to find out. No more boring cars. That was the mantra from Toyota boss Akio Toyoda that's underpinned development of the brand's entire modern era range. With this Mark IV Yaris hybrid though, that fresh approach met its toughest challenge yet. In its previous forms prior to 2020, this was, after all, the definitive boring car, especially in terms of its drive dynamics. What it was designed to do, it did brilliantly, just not in a very engaging way. But this 4th generation version is different, as we found when we first tested it back in 2020. completely reworked suspension and a new GAB version of the company's modern era TNGA platform made it more agile and stiffer. A bit of weight loss helped too, aided by the engineering switch from 4 to 3 cylinders for the 1.5 litre self-charging full hybrid petrol-electric engine beneath the more sculpted bonnet, the only mainstream power plant offered with this car for our market. This features 2 electric motors, one in the driveline to power the front wheels, and another smaller one to start the engine and charge both the drive and auxiliary batteries. The optional availability of this power plant in an uprated 129 brake horsepower form, which is what we're trying here, is the only significant engineering change made to this facelifted version of the Mark IV model, although most owners will continue to stick to this unit in its original 114 brake horsepower form. In both its guises, this car is impressively frugal, helped by the changes made to the hybrid system's drive battery when this 4th generation model was originally launched. This switched to lithium-ion cells and was made smaller and lighter, enabling it to power the car alone for up to 80% of the time in urban traffic, rather than 50% as was the case with the pre-2020 era models. But then the Yaris hybrid was always very good in town. This one enjoys life beyond the city limits as well, especially in this 129 brake horsepower form, which feels noticeably perkier than the lesser unit. As a result, mid-range overtakes need a little less forward planning. 50 to 75 miles an hour with this uprated engine needs only 7.5 seconds. Earlier generation Yarises were plagued by a lazy rubber band style response from Toyota's belt-driven CVT transmission. It would be quite correct to say that this issue has been entirely eradicated by this Mark IV model's reworked eCVT Auto, but it has been vastly improved. Aided, we suspect, primarily by that new battery with its 50% power hike and the fact that it's now chipping in to fill drivability gaps far more frequently. Toyota rather frowns on the mild hybrid tech that Ford, Suzuki and Hyundai campaign with in the small car segment, engines which only skate around the surface of electrification and don't allow independent battery-powered motion. As already mentioned, this car's full hybrid setup rather pleasingly reverts to that for what seems like most of the time on suburban journeys. Of course, when you're pressing on around secondary roads or on the highway, the 3-cylinder 1490cc power plant still will be your primary means of propulsion in its mainstream 114 brake horsepower form, powering the car to 62 miles an hour in 9.7 seconds en route to an academic maximum of 109 miles an hour. Toyota's created the extra grunt of this 129 brake horsepower model by fitting a slightly more powerful 83 brake horsepower electric motor, up from 79, and a revised transaxle, but the result on paper isn't as significant as it feels in practice. There's a half-second improvement in the 62 mile an hour sprint to 9.2 seconds. As we suggested earlier, very early Yaris hybrid models felt a little out of their depth beyond the city limits. This one feels far more engaging in the way that it corners and steers, thanks not only to the stiff body shell and sophisticated suspension we referenced earlier, but also to a centre of gravity that Toyota lowered by 12 millimetres for this 4th generation XP120 design. The steering doesn't have the more satisfying sharpness you'd get in a rival Corsa hybrid, but you can at least properly feel what the wheels are doing through it, and the impressive body control through the turns makes you more minded to try. If the engineers could have achieved all of this without sacrificing something a typical Yaris hybrid owner will value rather more, an absorbent quality of low-speed ride, then all would have been fine. But that, alas, isn't what's served up here. It isn't on the larger 17-inch wheels fitted further up the range, for sure. Those are the rims we're trying here. These get lower profile tyres and suspension changes, delivering a firmer feel that works great through the turns on those country roads, but unsettles the car more than we'd like over the urban tarmac tears and speed humps you're going to be encountering rather more frequently. Bear in mind that in the standard range, if you want the fastest 129 brake horsepower engine, you have to have top GR Sport trim, which comes only with even bigger 18-inch rims and firmer suspension. Definitely one to try before you buy. Toyota points out that the majority of Yaris sales will be of lesser variants fitted with smaller 16-inch rims, which have been set up to ride with a little more compliancy. And with that in mind, you might want to insist that your dealer lets you try a lower spec model before you make a decision on trim. With that issue sorted, there's plenty to like. As ever in a Yaris hybrid, refinement is superb, which makes longer trips more palatable. These aided by the standardization of intelligent adaptive cruise control, which can automatically maintain your distance to the car in front on the highway. On that kind of road, an earlier generation version of this car would always have run entirely on petrol power. In theory, though not in our experience in practice, it might not now, given the way that this Mark IV model's denser battery cells make possible a massive increase in all-electric top speed from 25 to 80 miles an hour. At lower speeds, when, as we've been saying, the battery certainly will be your primary power source, all you really hear is a bit of muted whining under acceleration from the electrical hardware, exacerbated a little by the enhancement in regenerative braking you get when clicking the 𝗙cie𝗹𝗹liche auto gear selector into its alternative B setting. Talking of settings, there are 3 provided driving modes. You won't be bothering much with the electric-only EV option because due to the tiny 0.76 kilowatt-hour size of that lithium-ion battery, it's only good for about 4 miles. Most of the time, you'll be content to leave the car in eco, despite the fact that throttle response and climate control performance will be a touch restricted. For out-of-town use, there's the option of selecting power if you want to buffet your fuel figures, but motivate a little more petrol engine involvement to get where you're going a little faster. But going faster isn't really what driving a Yaris is all about, unless the version in question happens to be the only 3-door model in the range, the uber-powerful flagship hot hatch GR Yaris variant, which was the first true performance model developed entirely in-house by Toyota in more than 20 years. That 4-wheel drive rally-inspired model's also been improved as part of this mid-term update, with power up from 258 to 276 brake horsepower. Plus, Toyota's added the option of an 8-speed automatic gearbox to sell alongside the existing 6-speed IMT manual. There's also modified suspension, revised spring rates, and a stronger front shock absorber. A GR Yaris powers to 62 miles an hour in just over 5 seconds and offers bigger brakes along with 3 preset torque distribution levels: normal, sport and track. That GR model is a car we love, but a typical Yaris hybrid owner would probably hate it. It is, after all, so utterly opposite to the kind of small hatch this little Toyota tries to be in this, its mainstream form. Quiet, comfortable, easy to drive, and blessed with a tight 5.5 metre turning circle and turn on a 6-pence manoeuvrability. All of these things make volume versions of this Toyota appealing to the kind of people who never really go very far in the Super Mini they've chosen, but want comfort and ease of use for the short of trips they do make. In its original form, this 4th generation Yaris was able to reach out beyond these folk to those who might demand a little more from their small car, and the improved version of this design has been able to build on that, with features like an improved, more intuitive version of the previous car's intelligent adaptive cruise control system. Depending on your perspective, this updated model's arrival might even make this little Toyota now the most sensible Super Mini you could choose. Few changes were needed to the muscular, condensed, agile visual look of the original version of this Mark IV Yaris, and apart from a smarter front end, a few revised alloy wheel designs and an extra paint colour option, Toyota hasn't really made any. For the original version of this 4th generation XP210 series design, Toyota returned to the big, small concept that had characterised the original 1st generation turn-of-the-century Yaris, which is why, by class standards, overall height and length are so compact. The car measures in at 3,940 millimetres long. Most Super Mini rivals are over 4 metres long. But the wheelbase and front and rear tracks are generous, giving a planted look. Pronounced blisters feature over the wheel arches, plus there are super short overhangs and complex surfacing over the rear doors. Chief engineer Yasunori Suizawa apparently wanted the styling to capture the stance of an athlete on the starting blocks. And it is still quite a good-looking little thing. The revised wheel rims are either 16-inch or, as in this case, 17 inches in size. This bi-tone paint finish, by the way, is only available with plush XL trim and then only as an option. It draws your attention to this rather unique twin-ribbed roof panel. For the main changes made to this updated version of the 4th generation design, you've to look here at the front, where the styling's focused on this large grille with its central Toyota emblem. The restyled headlamps you get above base trim feature LED technology and include turn indicators that alternate with the daytime running lights. The headlights extend towards the front wheels in a styling feature intended to visually reduce the perceived length of the front overhang. And there are these boomerang-shaped corner cutouts with little round fog lamps within. Otherwise, things are much as before. With this Mark IV Yaris, the designers added to the dynamic look by pulling the base of the A-pillar rearwards, which also improves the driver's forward view and increasing the bonnet length. They also sought to make this Yaris look planted at the back, whereas before this black mid-level trim panel and a prominent diffuser-style section in the sculpted bumper together accentuate this 4th generation design's 50mm increase in overall width over its pre-2020 era predecessor. That, along with this XP120 model's 57mm extension of track width, adds to the lower, wider and more purposeful stance. All of this is made possible by the chassis the car runs on, a GAB version of the brand's usual TNGA platform, which is essentially the same as that used in the larger Corolla hatch. All good, but what you'll probably care more about is the stuff you can actually see. The cabin quality of previous Yaris models couldn't quite compete with the kind of Volkswagen Group-style interiors that Super Mini customers are now increasingly taking for granted in this segment. So, are things better here? Well, a big step forward's certainly been taken. You still wouldn't think you were sat in a Volkswagen Polo, but everything does feel as if it's been given a bit more love, that the designers have thought a bit about what they'd actually like to live with, rather than what works best on a CAD-CAM screen. Analog instrument dials have been replaced by a digital binnacle screen that'll be either 7 inches or, as in this case, 12.3 inches, depending on grade, of course. The plusher models also get this improved 10.5-inch Toyota Smart Connect Plus central touchscreen. It all makes the fascia style more modern, so it helps that the trim materials are now of slightly higher quality. Detail updates include this larger area of soft touch padding across the dashboard and soft felt inserts in the door panels, plus the sporty steering wheel now has more tactile auxiliary buttons. As before, everything seems to be ideally where you'd want it, and the French Pas-de-Calais factory appears to have screwed things together with the kind of quality that now really does justify the rave reviews that Yarises tend to get from long-term customer satisfaction surveys. When we first tried this 4th generation model, we appreciated the way that function as well as form has been prioritised here. The design focused on an eyes on the road, hands on the wheel approach that brings key things into your sightline, minimises distraction and improves visibility. In pursuit of this, the instrument panel has been set low. There's a wide front console, a low hood for the instrument binnacle, and the A-pillars have been pulled as far back as the designers dared. Plus, Toyota tried to create more of a spacious feeling environment by moving these front seats slightly outwards and 60mm rearwards. This XP120 design's relatively low roof height meant they had to be set quite low too, which in turn delivers a sportier seating stance in front of the smaller wheel. We mentioned the central infotainment screen, a Toyota Smart Connect Plus setup, which is 2.5 inches larger than the old 8-inch Toyota Touch 2 monitor. Software improvements have made this display faster, plus system updates can now be added over the air using the car's communications module. And plusher models get this test car's cloud-based navigation system that helps ensure time-efficient journey planning with up-to-the-minute information on routes, traffic events and delays. There are convenient shortcut options on the right side of the monitor for nav, music, phone, car, apps and settings, and you can use this screen to access Wi-Fi and a web browser. As before, the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring system is of the wireless sort. But voice recognition has moved to another level, with the voice agent able to respond to requests using more natural, conversational forms of speech, plus it can adjust climate settings and listen to requests without having to lower or turn off audio playback. Just preface what you want to do with the command, "Hey Toyota." As for the new instrument cluster display we mentioned earlier, well, this replaces the pre-facelift model's rather playful binocular dial arrangement and is the kind of thing you'd normally expect to find in a much larger car. The central multi-information part of the display is dedicated to the most frequently used information, such as advanced safety system status, settings and driver alerts. The left and right displays cover details such as journey information, fuel consumption, audio and navigation details. Widgets can also be added to the left and right displays to access more information using switches on the steering wheel. Up to 3 different layout combinations can be stored for use on different types of journeys. Further customization is provided with a choice of 4 display themes: casual, smart, tough and sporty. And 1, 2, or if you want to, no dials. The smaller 7-inch version of this display offers 9 patterns, 3 styles and a choice of 3 function displays: rev counter, hybrid system indicator and an analog speedometer. Otherwise, things are much as before. Good pedal alignment and lots of seat and wheel adjustability means it's easy to find an ideal driving position. It isn't all perfect, of course. There are still some cheap touches, for instance the scratchy plastic on the tops of the door cards and the cheap fabric covering for the armrest. The seats could be a bit more supportive. They'd certainly benefit from the option of lumbar support and ideally would have backrests adjusted by a wheel rather than in steps by a lever. Plus, those pulled back A-pillars remain a bit on the thick side for optimum junctional vision. But the width of the big windscreen helps at roundabouts, and thanks to large side windows and a decently sized rear screen, all-round visibility is better than the class average, with a standard rear view camera also included just in case. Cabin storage isn't anything to write home about. The door bins are narrow but can just about hold a small bottle of water. You could probably fit a set of gloves in the glove box, and there's a tray just above it that you won't want to use because everything on it would slide around everywhere. Another cubby above the climate controls is better because it has a non-slip mat. This big lower centre stack cubby in front of the gear stick is probably where you'll stash your wallet, purse or phone, the latter connectable via a couple of USB sockets just above. Another small cubby is incorporated into this central armrest, but it's so shallow we can't imagine what you'd ever put in it. Below this you'll find a couple of cup holders, although once you fold the armrest down it'll probably hit the tops of any bottles you place below. Toyota's overlook ticket clips in the sun visors and an overhead sunglasses compartment. OK, time to take a seat in the back. Now, is this where the big small concept comes unstuck? Well, at least these rear doors open quite wide. But it's fairly tight for cabin space in the rear, though it'll be fine if you rarely take adults here. Earlier era Yaris models used to feel more spacious than this. The old Mark II version even had a sliding bench base, but you can't have that now because the hybrid system battery sits under this seat cushion rather than under the floor, as it did with the old pre-2020 era Mark III design. It's certainly why you can't have the useful pull-up seat bases you get on a rival Honda Jazz hybrid. a couple of lanky folk could just about be accommodated, but 6-footers will struggle to get comfortable. At least the centre transmission tunnel is low, so if it were ever necessary to squeeze in 3 folk back here, you could conceivably just about do it. Plus, the curiously shaped side windows are quite tall, so kids shouldn't feel too claustrophobic. As in any Super Mini, it'd be a bit of a squash with a couple of really big folk back here, of course, though not as much of a squash as it would be in the Japanese market version of this car, which is actually quite a lot narrower, illustrating the production flexibility of the 𝗙cie platform. Headroom isn't great either, courtesy of that lower external roof line, though 6-footers will just about fit. Having said all of that, if rear seat room were actually to be an issue, then a customer seeking a compact Toyota of this sort probably wouldn't be looking at this Super Mini body style in the first place, but at the more spacious Yaris Cross SUV version of this design. Most buyers, of course, will be using this rear bench for children, in which case they'll be pleased to learn that the rear seat belts feature force limiters and pre-tensioners, as well as the usual ISOFIX fastening points. You'd think that on a plush variant like this one, Toyota would have fitted a USB port back here, and it's also rather mean that a seat back pocket isn't fitted behind the driver's seat. But there are bottle holders in the doors and coat hooks in the overhead grab handles. OK, we'll finish with a look at boot space. Now, bearing in mind the battery relocation we just mentioned, it's a fraction disappointing to find that the 286-litre capacity is the same as in the old pre-2020 Mark III model, which is why, where most segment rivals will take up to 5 carry-on suitcases, this Yaris will manage only 4. To give you some perspective, the segment sales leader, Vauxhall's Corsa, offers 309 litres. And it's also worth mentioning that a city car like Hyundai's i10 from the next segment down has a 251-litre boot that's almost as big. You might think comparisons like these to be a little unfair. After all, hybrid packaging has to have some practical effect, yet competitors manage it better. A rival Honda Jazz hybrid offers 304 litres of space. With a Renault Clio hybrid, it's 366 litres. Still, at least this trunk space is square and usable, extending back 630mm to the seat backs and offering 1004mm of width, enough for, say, a pushchair to fit in quite easily. There is a bag hook, but Toyota seems to have forgotten to fit tie-down points, and there's not space for much beneath the boot floor, though you will get a space-saver spare wheel provided down here. That's if you don't choose the XL trim level and take up that variant's option of Toyota's Sky View panoramic glass roof. There's the convenience of an adjustable height boot floor, and flattening the 60-40 split rear bench frees up 947 litres. This, Toyota's chief executive, 𝗙cie 𝗹𝗹cie, says, is his everyday go-to car. We don't want our customers to think of it as cheap, he says. We want drivers to think of it as cool and affordable. Well, that'll depend, of course, on your definition of cool and affordable. In other global markets where conventional 1-litre and 1.5-litre petrol units are offered, this Yaris might conceivably qualify for that description, but it certainly doesn't here, where the sole powertrain availability of a self-charging hybrid engine meant that from the launch of this updated model in early 2024 and at the time of this test, asking figures didn't even start until nearly £23,000, which is well over the £2,500 more than this Mark IV model cost when we first tested it back in 2020. And that amount only gets you the base Icon trim level that few will want. At the time of this test in spring 2024, it was necessary to think in terms of paying from around £23,500 for the next spec level up design, with the plush XL variant listing from launch at £26,700. All the Yaris variants we've so far mentioned use the mainstream 114 brake horsepower version of this car's 1.5-litre hybrid engine. If you want that unit in the uprated 129 brake horsepower form we're trying here, you'll need to stretch to the top GR Sport version, which cost nearly £29,000 at the time of this test, about the same as the limited run Premier Edition, which was on sale for a short time after launch. And that's actually what we're trying here. Don't, by the way, get that GR Sport spec mixed up with the rally-inspired GR Yaris hot hatch, which is really a separate model entirely. It's a 3-door, has a non-hybrid 1.6-litre 276 brake horsepower, now comes with a choice of 6-speed IMT manual or 8-speed auto transmission, and from launch carried a much increased starting price tag in its uprated form of £44,250. We should additionally brief you on the fact that for a little more, there's also an SUV Yaris body shape that shares all the same hybrid engineering as this conventional Yaris. It's called the Yaris Cross and has shared most of the same midterm updates applied to this Yaris Super Mini. This crossover variant comes with the option of Toyota's AWD-i four-wheel drive system and is 200mm shorter than Toyota's other stylised compact SUV, the 𝗙cie𝗹𝗹liche. Here, though, our focus is on the conventional Super Mini version of this Toyota, which is of crucial importance to its brand, accounting for over 22% of its new car business and 7.6% of the entire European B-segment market. That's a closely fought segment, with most conventionally engined Super Mini sector entrants priced from around £19,000 to £20,000, even those with mild hybrid engines like Suzuki's Swift and Hyundai's i20. You might expect to pay quite a lot more to get a full hybrid engine that can run solely on battery power for short periods. Well, not necessarily. At the time of this test, Chinese maker MG had shaken up this part of the market by putting its new MG3 Hybrid Plus model on sale for around £18,500, complete with a much more powerful engine than you get in any version of this Yaris, developing 192 brake horsepower. That might be a tempting option, as might Renault's Clio E-Tech full hybrid, which at the time of this test was priced from just over £21,000. Hybrid versions of the Vauxhall Corsa and Peugeot 208 were, as we filmed, priced quite comparably to this Toyota. But the other rival that might come to mind, Honda's Jazz, is much pricier, costing from over £26,000 at the time of this test. If, having considered all of these options, you decide that it is this Toyota that you really want, then you're going to need to know just how generous the brand's been with the standard spec. Well, let's take a look at that now. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the range kicks off with Icon trim, which gets you 16-inch silver alloy wheels, auto high-beam headlights and wipers, front fog lights, an acoustic windscreen, powered heated mirrors, LED tail lamps, a space-saver spare wheel, and an alarm immobiliser. On the inside, there's automatic air conditioning, a 3-spoke leather multifunction steering wheel, and intelligent adaptive cruise control with an adjustable speed limiter. Media connectivity at this level in the range is taken care of by an older tech Toyota Touch 3 central screen, but it does incorporate a reversing camera, lets you connect in your smartphone wirelessly with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and also provides access to Bluetooth and a 4-speaker DAB stereo system. Plus, you get a wide range of camera safety features, which we'll come onto in a few minutes. Across the Yaris range, useful connected services can be accessed via the MyT Toyota smartphone app. Features include practical and useful information about Toyota and an eco-driving app. MyT also logs driving data, so information about mileage, speed and acceleration can be retrieved at a later date. It can also provide reminders about when the car's service is due. Beyond Icon spec, there's quite a big price jump to the next step up in the range. Design trim, the variant Toyota expects 48% of customers to choose. Still, you get quite a bit more kit in return, including a smarter look, courtesy of full LED headlights with LED front light guides, LED front fog lamps, brighter rear LED tail lamps, rear privacy glass and a more eye-catching black machine-faced finish for the 16-inch alloy wheels. Plus, inside, the analogue instrument dials of the base spec model are replaced by a 7-inch customisable digital combi-meter display. Rear powered windows and LED turn indicators are also included at this level. For a few more of the real differences that mark this revised version of the Mark IV Yaris out, though, you'll need to stretch right to the top of the range. XL trim, which, as we said earlier, is the furthest you can go up the lineup, staying with the base 114 brake horsepower engine, gets Toyota's highest level of Super Mini screen tech, a 12-inch customisable digital combi-meter display for the instruments, and the brand's larger 10.5-inch Toyota Smart Connect Plus central infotainment monitor, which comes with cloud-based navigation, over-the-air updates, and intuitive voice control. Also at this level in the range, you get luxuries like dual-zone automatic air conditioning with a Nano X air quality system, smart keyless entry and front sports seats trimmed in part synthetic leather upholstery. Plus there's a wireless phone charger, an uprated 6-speaker sound system and height adjustment for the front passenger seat. Bear in mind though that with XL spec you have to have larger 17-inch alloy wheels which come non-negotiably with significantly firmer suspension, which a typical Yaris buyer may not like. Try this first before you decide on your trim level. XL trim also gives you a lot more parking peace of mind. Front and rear parking sensors are fitted as standard at this level, along with a clever intelligent clearance sonar feature that can detect the risk of a low-speed collision during a parking manoeuvre, say something you haven't seen like a low wall. Because the intelligent clearance sonar is directly connected to the braking system, if something like that is detected, the brakes will automatically be applied to prevent a collision. That only leaves the top GR Sport variant you'll need to get the uprated 129 brake horsepower version of the hybrid engine, the unit we've been trying here. Those with their chiropractor on speed dial will be pleased to learn that this gets firmer suspension tuning and bigger 18-inch wheels. Other GR Sport features include bespoke door scuff plates, a partially perforated red-stitched leather steering wheel, and sports seats with leather-like bolsters and black perforated synthetic ultra suede upholstery. We should additionally mention at this point that you have to stretch to the top XL and GR Sport grades to get all the features potentially available with Toyota's useful 𝗙cie smartphone app, specifically remote control of the hazard flashes and climate system. Standard features of the app include practical and useful information about Toyota and an eco-driving app. 𝗙cie also logs driving data, so information about mileage, speed and acceleration can be retrieved at a later date. It can also provide reminders about when the car's service is due. Let's now talk about extras you could add to your chosen Yaris. There aren't too many options because Toyota wants you to simply upgrade to a higher trim level if you want a higher standard of kit. If you want a shinier look, the brand offers Chrome and Chrome Plus packs, and there are various different wheel upgrade options, though unfortunately you can't specify smaller, more compliant 16-inch rims on the XL variant. The GR Sport variant can be styled with an optional carbon pack and can be had with this bitone roof as an option. Bear in mind that with all Yaris variants, you'll almost certainly be paying extra for your choice of paint colour. Practical extras available across the range include an essential protection pack, which gives you a boot liner, mud flaps and a rear bumper protection plate. Above base trim, you can get these features as part of a Protection Plus pack that also includes rubber floor mats. Roof crossbars can be added, and with those you can have a roof box or holders for skis, snowboards or bikes. Plus, of course, you can specify a tow bar which can tug along up to 450 kilos. There's an optional dash cam as well and a range of Toyota-approved child seats. Enough on options, what about the safety standards of this fourth generation Yaris? Well, Toyota says that this car's been engineered to be the world's safest small car, and there's something of a model line track record here. The second generation model was the first Super Mini in its class to achieve a top 5-star ranking from Euro NCAP safety testing. And the Mark III version was also amongst the class leaders in this regard, thanks to its inclusion of Toyota's impressive package of safety sense camera measures. This Mark IV model's cause was helped from the outset by the significant 37% increase in body rigidity, brought about by the installation of its new GAB platform, achieved through extra welding and bonding as easiest, additional reinforcements and the creation of robust ring structures in the body to increase stiffness. All of which allows for better absorption of impact forces, helping to maintain the integrity of the cabin and the safety of the occupants in the event of a collision. Should such an impact take place, you'll be further aided by this Mark IV Yaris's model's inclusion of SRS centre airbags. This was the first Toyota model to feature these. SRS centre airbags deploy in the event of a side impact and help prevent the driver and front seat passenger from colliding with one another. Should any of these bags deploy in an accident, there's the usual e-call system that'll alert accident rescue with your exact GPS location. As expected, you get active headrests to guard against whiplash and ISOFIX child seat mounts on the 2 outer rear seats. And on top of that, there's hill start assist control to prevent the car from rolling backwards as you pull away on steep inclines, plus VSC stability control and the usual ABS braking and traction control systems. Every model in the range also comes with a tyre pressure warning feature as well. So that's been the starting point here. How has Toyota sought to further improve things with the improved version of this model? Well, as before, all Yaris models get a class-leading package of Toyota safety sense elements, including features like automatic high beam and road sign assist. But this revised model goes further. It's equipped with a new camera and radar, which can scan further ahead and wider than before, significantly increasing the scope for collision risk detection. For example, this means the pre-collision system autonomous braking setup can now additionally recognise a potential head-on impact and a wider range of objects in the car's path, including pedestrians, cyclists and, for the first time, motorcycles. Acceleration suppression is another added Toyota safety sense feature which will intervene to slow any sudden acceleration of the car when there's a risk of a collision with the vehicle ahead. Proactive driving assist, or PDA, is also new, designed to help avoid familiar accident hazards when driving at low speeds. It provides smooth deceleration when the driver comes off the throttle to slow down when coming up behind a slower vehicle or when entering a bend. And PDA further provides steering assist when the car is approaching a bend. This will adjust steering force to help the driver make a smooth and stable turn. Another freshly added Toyota safety sense feature is Toyota's emergency driving stop system, which can support the driver should they be taken ill or be incapacitated. Active when the car's built-in lane trace assist setup is engaged, this detects if the driver's made no steering, braking or acceleration inputs for a certain amount of time. Initially, the driver will receive audio and visual warnings, and if there's still no response from the driver, it will bring the car to a gentle stop, activate the hazard lights and unlock the doors. We mentioned lane trace assist. Well, this system's lane centering function's been recalibrated to work with a more natural feeling, and now just a one-touch adjustment of the speed limiter is all that's needed to match traffic sign information relayed by the road sign assist setup. The rear seat reminder system is another added innovation that reminds the driver with warnings and audio alerts if they've left a child or pet on the back seat, helping avoid the risk of hot car incidents. If you need more, then you'll have to stretch to a plush XL trimmed model or pay for an optional safety pack with either design or GR Sport trim. Do that and you also get 2 further features. Safe Exit Assist, which provides audio-visual warnings to help prevent a car door being opened inadvertently into the path of vehicles and cyclists approaching the rear. And Lane Departure Alert, which will recognise when the driver has steered out of a lane when trying to avoid an obstacle, such as a pedestrian or other road users, and temporarily cancel the lane departure warning system. As for drive assist features, well, all versions of this enhanced Yaris get an improved 𝗙cie, or Intelligent Adaptive Cruise Control system that's been revised for quicker response and now operates with a more natural and reassuring feel. For example, when another vehicle moves into the car's traffic lane, deceleration is more gradual. The driver can also select a longer vehicle-to-vehicle gap setting and the system's curve speed reduction function activates earlier, giving smoother speed control. New systems have been added to this 𝗙cie setup designed to make overtaking safer. Overtaking prevention support prevents unintentional passing on the wrong side of a vehicle, you might know it as undertaking. And preliminary deceleration and turn signal link control helps the driver safely rejoin the traffic lane after overtaking at an appropriate speed and distance from other vehicles. While other brands are just about getting around to hybrid electrification, Toyota is on the 5th generation of its petrol-electric power plant. Back in 2020, the engineering here was completely overhauled for the original version of this Mark IV Yaris, and it's still class-leadingly efficient, as you'll see from a glance at the WLTP-rated figures. The mainstream 114 brake horsepower version of this power plant that most customers will be looking at manages up to 70.6 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 91 grams per kilometre of CO2 with volume design trim. A top spec version like this one, with the 𝗙cie 129 brake horsepower version of this engine, drops those figures a little, but not by too much. You're looking at up to 67.3 mpg and up to 96 grams per kilometre. The next most efficient class contender is the Renault Clio E-Tech full hybrid model we tested recently. That manages up to 64.2 mpg and 98 grams per kilometre. In an MG3 Hybrid Plus, you'd get up to 64.2 mpg and 100 grams per kilometre, and either a Honda Jazz or a Vauxhall Corsa Hybrid manages up to 62.8 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 102 grams per kilometre of CO2. So, how has Toyota kept its nose in front of these emerging segment rivals? Well, like the brand's previous generation hybrid unit, this one benefits from exceptionally high levels of thermal efficiency, 40% to be specific, ensuring that more of the energy potential of every drop of fuel is captured. This Polish-built unit still uses the Atkinson cycle, which keeps the intake valves open for longer, delaying the compression stroke. But in this 4th generation Yaris hybrid, it now has just 3 cylinders rather than the previous pre-2020 era Mark III models 4. A major reason for the useful curb weight reduction enjoyed by this XP120 series design. An entry-level variant of this car tips the scales at just 1,145 kilos, which makes it significantly lighter than its key rivals. Those competing brands will continue to pore over this Toyota's Synergy Drive power plant to understand just why it's so efficient, and will note the 5th generation engineering, which includes a redesigned power control unit and a more compact and lightweight hybrid transaxle, which places the hybrid system's 2 electric motors on multiple shafts, rather than more conventionally, one behind the other. This reduces that transaxle's width by 37 millimeters. For this Mark IV Yaris hybrid's 0.76 kWh battery, Toyota's at last switched away from old-fashioned nickel metal hydride tech to a lithium-ion pack, while increasing voltage up from 144 to 177.8 volts and current flow up to 100% into the battery and by 50% out of it. The brand also made this battery smaller so that it could be located beneath the rear seat rather than under the boot floor. That relocation enables it to remain cooler, negating the needs for the previous unit's standalone liquid cooling system. Combining these with those other improvements explains the reason why this power pack lost a significant 27% or 12 kilos of its weight with this 4th generation model. Small wonder then that the overall efficiency figures remain class-leading. Those in a frugal frame of mind will want to try and get as close as possible to replicating the official figures by using the instrument binnacle's left-hand power meter display, and as often as possible staying in its blue charge or green eco zones. Toyota rather ambitiously reckons that its self-charging hybrid engines are capable of covering up to 80% of a typical daily commuting drive under electric power alone. As usual, on a Toyota hybrid, there's an available EV button that's supposed to fix the car in electrified motion, which can apparently take place at up to 80 miles an hour. In reality though, you'll find that the batteries are hardly ever charged up enough for you to be able to use this feature. And even when you can, it'll only apparently last for around 4 miles, though we've never managed to travel anything like that distance under EV power in this test. To be fair, full hybrid engines, unlike plug-in hybrids, aren't designed to run for extended periods under full electrification. The idea instead being that the battery will cut in and out as needed during town driving. As a result, during much of your urban motoring in a Yaris hybrid, say with your engine along in traffic with the engine seamlessly disabled, the EV mode activated and battery power in motion, you won't be emitting anything. At higher speeds, you'll need to bear in mind that the quoted fuel figures are even more heavily dependent than normal on the driver assuming a significant degree of restraint. The provided eco driving section of the 𝗙cie𝗹𝗹ecie smartphone app might help here. To get anywhere near even the 50 miles per gallon mark in day-to-day use with this Toyota, you'll need to keep the car locked into the driving mode system's eco mode, which moderates throttle response and engine power output while tweaking the climate control. And ideally, you'd be selecting the CVT Gearbox Extra provided B setting, which increases the level of regenerative braking and therefore the level of energy harvesting as you drive. You can observe the hybrid system do its thing via a selectable energy flow monitor available on the car section of the center screen, or in smaller form in the instrument binnacle. Finally, when you power off, a trip summary pops up on the instrument screen ahead, giving you the distance you've just covered, the trip time, the percentage of the trip you've covered in EV drive, and the trip average in MPG. You can get detailed feedback on your car's frugality via a trip info section on the center screen, which graphically shows this Yaris's economy on current and history displays, together with range, average speed and trip duration. You might hope that this hybrid system's frugality would entitle you to significantly better treatment from the inland revenue, but sadly not. This Yaris attracts a benefit in kind rating of between 23 and 25%, which isn't much less than you'd have to find for a more conventionally engined Super Mini. But that's only part of the story. Take all aspects of your running costs into account and the Yaris's running cost proposition begins to look more attractive. Take routine maintenance, for instance. True, garage visits are quite frequent, every 10,000 miles or 12 months, depending on whichever comes soonest. Still, there's no starter motor or alternator to go wrong, no drive belts to break, a maintenance-free timing chain, and of course, thanks to the CVT Auto gearbox, no clutch either. The hybrid setup has a good record for minimising tyre wear, and its battery will last the life of the car. Plus, the regenerative braking setup helps extend the life of the brake pads. Over 60,000 miles of driving, the front pads should only need replacing once, while the rear pads and all discs will probably last the full distance. Hybrid models are subject to extra service checks, but Toyota doesn't charge any more to do them. There's a dedicated My Toyota website that allows you to book a service online, and Toyota has a fixed price servicing plan, so you'll know in advance exactly how much any work will cost before you check into a dealer. You could also take advantage of the optional prepaid service plan that the dealer will offer at point of purchase. This enables Yaris owners to cover the cost of routine maintenance with monthly or one-off payments in advance. What else? Well, residual values. Those are reasonable but not exceptional. Independent industry experts reckon that this Yaris will retain between 50 and 52% of its original value over a 3-year, 36,000 mile period, which is much the same as you get from a Honda Jazz or Renault Clio hybrid. Insurance ratings are between groups 13 and 40. All of this technology might make you worry about this Yaris model's reliability, but the Prius-derived engineering in use here scores very highly in almost every customer satisfaction survey going. Unlike earlier Toyota hybrid models, there's no extended warranty for the hybrid components. Early Prius were covered for up to 8 years. But like other Toyotas, all Yarises come with the brand's Relax warranty package. This gives you an initial 3 years or 60,000 miles of warranty coverage. Then, every time you get your Yaris serviced at an authorised Toyota centre in line with its maintenance schedule, the brand will extend the warranty by a further year or 10,000 miles, up to a maximum of 10 years. Remember too that all Yarises get 5 years of pan-European roadside breakdown assistance, a 3-year paint warranty and 12 years of anti-perforation cover. At a time of radical change in the motor industry, this 4th generation Yaris had to deliver, and by and large, it has. In this updated form, it remains the definitive hybrid Super Mini and is more engaging to drive in this XP210 form than any of its predecessors were, though ride quality is a fraction compromised as a result. Assuming that you can afford the higher asking prices that unfortunately must accompany advanced electrified combustion technology, there's not much else to grouse about here. After decades of dull design for its conventional cars, the pennies finally dropped at Toyota that more striking looks mean healthier sales figures. And as a result, this 4th generation Yaris model was the first you could conceivably call fashionable or trendy, and looks smarter still in this updated form. Plus, the redesigned, more digitalised cabin's a vast improvement too. As before, most will still choose this hybrid Super Mini for its superb refinement, its regularly achievable 50 to 60 miles per gallon economy, and its tax-friendly CO2 readings. The difference now, though, is that those aren't the only reasons why you might want one. As an alternative to a baby battery-powered full electric small hatch, it may not be quite as good for the planet, but for most people, most of the time, it's by far the better all-round choice. And the bottom line, well, ask yourself what you really need a Super Mini for, and then see if this Yaris doesn't tick every single box. Toyota, it seems, knows how to write a bestseller.